1460 WVOX.
Stay tuned now for the Racing for Heroes radio show with host Brett Morash on 1460 WVOX.
All right, good morning, Racing for Heroes fans. Super excited. We are at November 6th, our ninth show, and we're just at the very beginning of Veterans Month. And today we're going to talk about, some of the important things facing the veteran community across the country, in particular suicide awareness. But before I start and before I bring on our guests, I do want to give a shout out to the guys behind the booth who are making this happen on the soundboard. We got Alex, who's sort of like the chief engineer on the ship. You know, as long as everything goes well, he's doing good. And then his number two guy is Mike, and who's a layman, a college graduate. But more importantly, he is a veteran of the U.S. Army. He was 11 Charlie Mortimer, and was part of the Fighting 69th, which is part of the New York National Guard. Long and storied history there. So thank you for your service, and I appreciate everything you guys do, and salute you right back. So without further ado, though, I do want to invite our first guest to come on. It's Tara Consolino, licensed social worker out in Detroit land. So she's presently the director of substance abuse disorder, suicide prevention, and outpatient social work at the Detroit, Michigan John Dingell Veteran Affairs Medical Center, so VAMC. And she's also a daughter of a U.S. Marine. So I know she's got veterans in her heart, and she's grown up with Marines, so she totally gets it. So without further ado, Tara, are you on the line?
I sure am. What an honor to be here with you and your crew.
Oh, listen, the honor's ours. And, I think as we mentioned in the beginning of the show, the reason we're having you on in particular today is kind of talking about the issues facing the veteran community. First and foremost, I know for Racing for Heroes and many of the people that I truly love is suicide prevention, and trying to make sure that, the veterans that are with us now don't become memorialized on Memorial Day. So anyway, so thank you for being on.
Absolutely.
So, can you tell us a little bit about your job? I mean, the VAMC, for anyone who doesn't know, is an enormous organization, and you seem to be like the number one person at the top of that, making it happen. So
absolutely, I love my job. I have been with the VA for the past 12 years, and it's one of those things where, let's face it, the sexy news stories are always the ones that are there's long lines, there's wait lists, there's just everything negative about veteran affairs. But I have to tell you, if you're my brother, if you're my cousin, if you are someone who served in the United States Armed Forces, the VA is where to be.
Oh, for sure.
When we got our act together in regards to open access, you can walk into any Veteran Affairs medical center across the country and be seen right away, whether it's through the emergency department, whether it's through primary care, mental health integration, whether it's, at the mental health clinic. There are evidence-based practices. There are veterans who are there. There are those who grew up as military dependents, or there's just American citizens who are there to truly serve those who served this country.
Yeah, and I think that's really important, that, you have people on the other end of the line that are super empathetic, especially if, they grew up in a military family or if they served in the military themselves. And so, yeah, that's amazing. And what is the Veteran Crisis Line number, since we're here?
Yeah, so since we're here, let's chat about that. The Veterans Crisis Line is actually the national crisis line. So if you're a civilian or a veteran, you call the number 1-800-273-8255. However, if you're a veteran, you'll press 1. You can also text that number to 838255. You can send a text, or you can even go online at veteranscrisisline.net and be able to interface with somebody that way.
Yeah, and Tara, I know you and I talked about this before, but I think that's critical, right? Is that it's really, when that person does make that outreach, is to really kind of lean into it. I know I had an experience where a guy served within Africa, was getting ready to kill himself, and thankfully he called me and his brother, and we went down and got him. Can you tell us about that experience? Like, what should people do if they get that call?
Yeah, so with the Veterans Crisis Line, oftentimes we hear people didn't call because they didn't know what to say. The fact is, when in doubt, if you're that veteran or you're even a loved one of that veteran and you're thinking, I don't know what to do, you can call that crisis line and they will link you to the appropriate service. They will tell you, you know what, ask these questions, or they might even connect you to other VA sources, such as Coaching into Care, which is a phone number. It's a national telephone service of the VA, which is to educate, support, and empower family members and friends. So that's not even for the veterans. They can link you to Coaching into Care. So if you're a friend or family member and you don't know what to say or how to help, they can go that way. If you're the veteran and you call the crisis line and you don't know what to say, they'll help you brainstorm to figure out what services you need and how they can connect you to your local person.
That's great. And then, so how would that work? Like if I called, let's say here from New York, so that would go to the national line, and then I guess probably Peter's VA here in the Bronx is my VA.
Yep.
And that's the connection.
So the Veterans Crisis Line is one of those services that all of the suicide prevention coordinators across the country are in constant communication on a daily basis with the different offices of the Veterans Administration Office of Mental Health and Suicide Prevention. So when there might be a hiccup or if there's any concerns or resources, there are just ongoing communications all day, every day.
Yeah.
And so therefore, what happens is you call the Veterans Crisis Line, they're going to immediately link you to your local VA person, and that person's going to be able to get you the sources that you need.
Oh, that's great. And I think that brings me kind of the next question. There's actually way more resources out there than just the Veterans Crisis Line, and
Absolutely.
So tell us about that.
Sure. So, if you go on to va.gov, you can find everything as far as the resources. But the two that I'd really like to highlight today with you is, again, that Coaching into Care. And that Coaching into Care is, again, that national telephone service. So this isn't even necessarily directly for the veteran. This is for the family members or the friends who might they see some of the warning signs before maybe the veteran themselves even does. And that telephone number is 1-888-823-7458. But then another resource that a lot of people are not aware of is the Maketheconnection.net. And again, that's Maketheconnection.net. And this is a collection of stories from veterans, family members. If you're a United States Marine who deployed during Desert Storm and maybe you're an African-American female, and you're looking for someone who's had a similar story, similar walked in your boots type of situation, you're able to go into this Maketheconnection.net and say, hey, who are people who are like me, that sound like me, that I can relate to? It is a phenomenal resource.
That's amazing. And that's all like on like a video, like a YouTube kind of thing for folks.
Sure is.
That's amazing.
Yep.
That's amazing. And how do they even collect those stories? I mean, that's just amazing that people are willing to talk about that.
It's one of those things where we get a bad rep as the VA because, there's good and bad. When you're the largest healthcare system in the world, let's face it, there's going to be good and bad that goes with that. But associated with being that large is our connections with different research facilities. We have different agencies throughout the country that we partner with, educationally speaking, where whether you're a social worker or a psychologist, a psychiatrist, we've got different individuals who are actively working on ongoing research, working together with veterans to develop these resources on a daily basis.
That's amazing. Like I said, it's just the amount of material available out there is stunning, and I just challenge any of our listeners out there to really just take a look at what the VA has to offer. It's way deeper than just the Veteran Crisis Line, and there's so much more out there. And even then, I think one thing that occurred to me listening to you talk, Tara, was it's really about talking about the suicide prevention, and I think that years ago people were kind of let's say antsy about or uncomfortable talking about suicide prevention. But I think we've all seen, buddies of ours that have taken their own lives, and it's important to kind of have those discussions up front and then be able to be there for them. Exactly. Yeah, and I think that along those lines, how would you recommend someone even kind of discuss suicide amongst a group of their peers or something like that?
I have to be honest, bluntly. It's one of those things where I think oftentimes people are afraid if I ask you about it that I'm going to plant that seed. And sadly, that's just not the case.
Yeah.
By asking about it, by saying, hey, listen, John Doe, what's going on?
Yeah.
I mean, I hate to be this direct, but are you having thoughts of killing yourself? By asking them directly, you're giving them permission that this is a safe space to talk.
Yeah, and you know, I think of just like my own experience. You know, when I first worked in post Navy and I was in my first civilian job, I was doing homeless prevention in New York City for veterans, and I literally walked in one day, and there was one of my shipmates sitting there, and his name was Lucky, and I won't say his last name, but you know, Lucky was sitting there. He's like, "Hey, sir, how's it going?" And I'm like, "What are you doing here, Lucky?" He's like, "Well, I was getting ready to kill myself this morning, but I saw that you guys had maybe a way for me to get an apartment." And I was like, "Whoa, come on in!" And you know, we took care of him, and he's on the road to recovery now. But like, those are the sort of things, for the grace of God go I, and I just think that that's so important for people to realize.
Exactly.
Yeah, and so continuing, there's all the other resources too that are like not in just the VA system. So, and I know both of you and I know about Psych Armor. Can you tell us a little bit about what Psych Armor is doing?
Yeah, Psych Armor is one of those resources that, in all seriousness, I can't even give you a snippet response, because the best way to go into what Psych Armor is to go online, and it's Psych Armor, and they have resources, they have trainings, they have, you don't know how to speak to somebody, how to speak to somebody. They have the risk signs. They have lethal means safety. It is just a wealth of information on anything mental health related that you could think about. You can probably find it on that website.
Yeah, and I actually was there when they were first kind of building out the Bob Woodruff volunteer program. I was herding the cats alongside the folks like Marjorie Morrison at Psych Armor. So it was a labor of love, and you know, I really think there's a tremendous amount of stuff there, and like it's like literally a training tool, like just to teach you like how to talk to people, how to talk to veterans. So, and you know, it's things like you know I know most folks are quick to do the hey, you know, thank you for your service, but it's always the second order question of like, hey, what did you do in the military? It's like Mike, you know, behind the desk here. I found out he was in the Army, and then next thing you know, I know he's a mortarman too. So you know, all those sorts of things. But that's amazing. And then you know, we are kind of getting to the end of our time, Tara. So I do have to you know ask some automotive questions though, or it wouldn't be Racing for Heroes Radio. So I know that your dad was a Marine, and so so you please tell us a little bit about him. But I heard that you had quite a road trip through the Appalachian Mountains.
Yeah, I would love to have given you a racing story, especially given the fact that I went to high school out in Jackson, Michigan, and we had MIS right near us. But sadly, my closest car-related story that's appropriate to share on the radio would be one of the many road trips that I went on with my dad as a kid.
Yeah.
So he was in scrap and steel sales, traveled a lot. We'd go on road trips with him. And let me pause and just say again, yes, he's a Marine. So his sense of humor is a little off color, as was the rest of the family.
Right.
And so we'd play really weird car games. So we're driving along the Appalachian Mountains, and in the middle of one of these games, which was, you know, if you're stuck in an office supply store and you have to defend yourself, what can you use as a weapon? Like, this is our car game, right?
Yeah, but that's good training, though, Tara, so...
Oh, yeah. Are you kidding me? Like, how do you MacGyver your way out of this? Right. When all of a sudden, bam, where our old man beige Ford Taurus bounces off this, like, dinosaur-sized bird, swirls in a 360, comes to a screeching halt, and then, like popcorn, our car is just rapid fire, bam, bam, bam.
Yeah.
I don't know if we drove through a pack of wild turkeys or what in the Alfred Hitchcock happened, but it was a situation straight out of the movie
That's amazing.
The Birds.
And I'm assuming this was like some big 1970s car that could do it, too, so...
Oh, I don't even know. It was a horrible car. I not comfortable, but man, did it weather that flock like no other. So Yeah,
Right.
so I don't have a racing story, but I have an anti-racing, go much slower than the speed limit
Right.
when going through the mountains of Tennessee story.
Well, and that's actually a good lead in because our next guest actually is a race car driver. So, Tara, listen, thank you for being on. A super pleasure, and I hope we have you back again as we get to the holidays, and we can talk a little bit more about what the VA has to offer. So, thank you for being on the show.
Absolutely, anytime.
That's
Thank
awesome.
you.
All right, thank you so much. Our next guest is Colin Garrett. He is the driver of the Racing for Heroes car in the NASCAR XFinity series. And I know Colin's been on again, but he also has two brothers in the military. One is a AH-64 Echo Apache pilot, and the other one is an Intel officer. So, Colin, are you on the line?
Yep, I got you.
And Colin, I was speaking to your dad recently. I heard you actually have Michigan roots too. And I don't know if you heard the previous caller. She's actually a daughter of Detroit, basically.
Yeah. Basically, my whole family's from Michigan, the Jackson area. Grew up in Stockbridge, I think, most of their lives.
Oh, so, sure, yeah.
And most of my family still live up there. So.
Yeah. It's actually, and I think that's close to Michigan International Speedway. So hopefully next year we'll have you out that way.
Yes, exactly. So hopefully.
Yeah. So I know that the season's kind of come to an end. I think the final race is this weekend. You won't be participating because you had a truncated schedule anyway. So what's the goal for next year?
We'll hopefully go full time next year, but that's basically what we've been working towards for the last few months. Is just trying to get funds together so we can get better equipment and everything, and be able to go racing full time next year. It's a 33 race schedule, so
good. So it's back to normal.
But yeah.
Yeah, and because that's actually been kind of some of the challenge, right? Is that you've actually done really well in these races that you've been involved in. But because of the way the point system works, you end up at the back of the pack, and then you have to fight your way to the front. So I guess it's good in that it gives you experience. It's bad in that you can't qualify and get a position that you probably rate.
Yeah, exactly. It's terrible because when you start in the back, you start around all the cars that maybe aren't as fast, and so you got to spend your time getting up through the field while the front runners are already figuring their deal out, and by the time you get there, it's 50 to go or whatever. So it's kind of
right.
You got what you got at that point, unless there's a late race restart.
Oh,
usually
sure.
there is, but then at that point you've used your extra set of tires that you would have used then because you used them trying to get through the slow cars.
Oh, I got you.
So,
see, this is the stuff us lay people don't know about there, Colin. So it's always good. It's always good to kind of learn a little more.
Exactly.
Yeah. So and I guess that kind of leads me to the next kind of question about that is now you've been with Sam Hunt, and I think he's really the owner of the cars, right? Is that kind of how it works?
Yeah. So Sam's the team owner, and he, we just go to him, and I've been with him since 2018. We ran the K&N series together.
Gotcha.
And then we also moved up to the Xfinity series together. So.
Oh wow. Okay.
He provides all the cars and stuff. And, we go race.
And you guys go way back, though. Like, you guys were like kids together, I think, right? Or, I guess...
No, he's like 6-7 years older than me, but I've known him since 2015, 2016.
Yeah, so it goes back.
We've known each other for a while. But.
Yeah, gotcha. Well, you're only 19, so, it's kind of tough. So, 6 years ago is not that long ago. But
exactly.
That's amazing. And so let's talk about next year. So what are you really hoping to do with the team though? And I know that everyone's pulling at the oars here trying to get you into that ride for next year. But just tell us what inspires you about Racing for Heroes and kind of being in our car or the Rosie network too. I know they're also on the car as well.
Yeah, we've had Racing for Heroes on the car since beginning of 2019. So, we've obviously had you guys with us for a big part of my career, and along with bringing the Rosie Network on this year. And then, as you know, we've had different veteran-owned companies on the car pretty much every race of the year this year. Like the Jewelry Republic, Audi Aqua, Nomad Raceways, all those different companies.
Yeah, and those are small little entrepreneurial companies too, and I think that's important, is that, this really is a race team that, is kind of a grassroots effort. I think people have called it the people's team, is kind of, I think, how it's been described, right?
Exactly. Yeah, that's what most people call it down in Charlotte.
Oh, they call it.
We are really small. Yeah, so we have 2 full-time employees, not including the team owner, but
yeah.
And our average age, I think, is like 23 maybe. So like it's pretty young.
That's amazing though. Like, and listen, I mean, you're one step below the top level of NASCAR. And, I think there's lots of people who, look up to you and want you to go fast. I mean, listen, I get emails saying, can I get a Colin Garrett hero card on a routine basis? And I know you've been very gracious and signed all those, and, we mailed them out. So if people do want to support your team, like what can they do? Where would I go if I was going to try to support Colin Garrett?
Yeah, I mean, just go to we have kind of our mission website is called ouramericandreamteam.com.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of is our whole veteran-based source, I would guess you would say.
Mm-hmm.
And, that gives you all the information, tells you all the companies we've teamed up with, all the veteran companies we've teamed up with, tells you about, what we're doing with you guys and promoting your free services to veterans.
Yeah.
And along with the Rosie Network and everything.
And that's ouramericandreamteam.com, right?
Yep, and it's on Facebook, and I don't know if it's any other platform. I think it's just Facebook.
And can I get I buy a T-shirt there too?
Yeah, I think so.
No, I don't. I have to check. No, because Tim McCready is driving with Racing for Heroes colors, and he actually won a big event last night. So I was trying to get Racing for Heroes shirt from his car, and they're actually sold out. So I'm going to have to go on a little later and get one from your team.
Well, yeah, he's a lot more famous than me, so he sells a lot more T-shirts. So,
but he's been driving a long time too. I think he's not that much younger than I am. But it just shows you the age and treachery always beats youth and beauty. I think that was something that we used to joke about in the military. But
exactly.
All right. Hey, well, speaking about that though, through American Dream Team, we're actually starting a whole new initiative, right? For sort of fundraising for the free programs we have, which are things like the supplement vitamin program or stem cell therapies for veterans, that are in need of it. And I think we talked about it, right? The 1111 project.
Yeah, the 1111 project, something new we're going to start doing. Obviously, it's going to kick off on 1111, and it's going to help help pay for veteran services that you guys provide. Because obviously they're free to the veterans, but they're not free to in general. So someone's got to pay for them. So
that's right.
I'm going to actually kick it off with $111 as a donation.
Oh, well, you're very kind, sir.
So everything. Just people donate and help the cause for all these veterans that need services. That's definitely going to be something cool that we'll go into more detail here in the next few days as we lead up to 11/11 and kind of describe it more. But I think it's going to be a pretty cool project.
I think it's going to be amazing. Because listen, we've seen. I know Eric Diddy. Who's part of the Racing for Heroes kind of universe and family, and Eric has MS, and through the stem cell therapy that he's been able to get through our on-call doctor, Dr. Ricky Camp, who's also former Army Green Beret. He's now walking again, and he's had lesions that are caused by MS, like actually reduce in size or stop growing. And he's able to kind of get out of the wheelchair again for brief periods. So, that's the sort of stuff where, every little bit counts for us. And it makes such a difference. And even our vitamin therapy program, which, we probably helped like 4 dozen folks, kind of get people's metabolisms back in check, so they have more strength and more endurance, and, they're kind of back to where they probably, should be.
Exactly. And, it's pretty crazy because when we first linked up back in January of last year, February of last year, Eric, he was, really in tough shape back then. And now, he's commenting everything on Facebook, and, he's doing really well now. So it's really cool to see.
That's true.
What all that's done. So.
Yeah. If you want to be entertained, please go find Eric Diddy on Facebook. I think he's the only one. And just look at his stuff. And this guy he's a tough cat. He was in the Army. He was a mechanic on trucks, like heavy trucks, like the Hemmets. And, he's always cooking something that I'm like, how does he do that? Like cooking show level of food. Let's put it that way.
Yes, exactly.
So, yeah, Eric Diddy. So, like, I'm putting that out in the universe. So, everyone should go ahead and look up Eric Diddy now. He's going to try to figure out why he just got 1,000 people liking him on Facebook. So,
I'm sure we'll be looking for that post later that he'll
right. Well, I do that for Colin Garrett too. Like, obviously, like, you should be going out for Colin Garrett and looking up his Facebook page. And then again, Colin, I just because we're kind of getting toward the end of the show here. I do want to again. So if people want to really support what you're doing, it's ouramericandreamteam.com, right?
Yeah, so ouramericandreamteam.com, and then my social media is Colin Garrett Webb, WEB, and that's on pretty much every social media platform.
Yep.
You can find me, and that'll eventually get you to Our American Dream Team, or you know, we obviously post stuff about it on there. So,
yeah,
you know, if you just want to stay up to date, you know, just follow any of those, and you'll get it all.
Yeah, actually, today's tweet, by the way, was the largest tweet of people who've seen it ever for Racing for Heroes. It's like when I left the home, my house rather, excuse me, there was already 2,500 people who had seen it. You know, between you and Craig Newmark pushing it out. So we're pretty excited for today. So you're famous, Colin, and that's the important thing for us. So no, listen, you're very gracious. And listen, when you see your brothers, please tell them thank you for me. You know, I know I'm a veteran. I've been retired about 8 years now, but you know, those guys are still at the tip of the spear, and I really appreciate it. So please pass along my best to your brothers.
Sure.
All right.
Thank you. All
right. Thanks, Colin. And then we're kind of getting to the last minute of our show now. So I just want to take the opportunity to kind of just talk about a couple things. Racing for Heroes Radio, we're looking forward to our kind of next go around. Next week, of course, is Veterans Day week. So please, if the weather's nice as it is today, and I think right now projections are, please get out, go support your veteran community, go to one of the events, and then talk to the veterans that are out there. It's a big opportunity for you to kind of really just meet some folks and you really see what the veteran community is about. And, you know, when you do ask someone thank you for their service, also follow up by, like, what did you do in the service? And you might get some great answers. It's a good opportunity for folks. So, listen, I want to thank everyone out there, and we are looking forward to next week when we have a whole new host of guests, including Mike Evok, our founder from Racing for Heroes. Thanks so much, everyone. Out here.
A little farther down the road, traveling when no one dared to go. I got a dream to chase, and it just won't wait. Just a little farther down.